You might remember a few years back, a world leader made this headline-grabbing offer to buy Greenland. And for most of us, it was met with, confusion and a little bit of ridicule. But what if I told you the reason we all found it so bizarre has nothing to do with politics and everything to do with the map that was probably hanging on your classroom wall? So when Donald Trump talked about Greenland being strategically important because of its location and because Russia and China were interested, well, the comment just kind of landed with a thud. For most people, it just didn't compute. Yeah, the reaction was pretty much instant ridicule. The whole thing was written off as, a billionaire's real estate impulse, not some serious strategic thought. But why? Why did it seem so completely absurd to so many of us? Well, here's a wild thought. What if the real reason we all laughed is because our basic, fundamental understanding of the world map is wrong? What if the joke is actually on us, thanks to a tool we look at all the time? This brings us to the map that misleads us. See, most of us see the world through this one very specific lens, and it's been shaping the way we think for almost 500 years. And that lens is the Mercator projection. It was created way back in 1569, and for sailors, it was an absolute game changer. Why? Because it kept compass bearings true. You could draw a straight line on the map and just follow that course. But, and this is a huge but, it came with a massive trade-off. It wildly, wildly distorts the size of anything near the North and South Poles. And here it is, the most famous, most mind-blowing example of this distortion. Look at a Mercator map, and Greenland looks enormous, right? Almost the same size as the entire continent of Africa. But in the real world, Africa's 14 times bigger. Let that just sink in for a second. 14 times. This isn't just a little rounding error. It's a colossal misrepresentation of our planet that we've all just kind of accepted as true. And this has a real psychological effect on us. As our source material says, this visual distortion has basically trained our brains to have this specific but totally incorrect intuition. We see the Arctic as this giant, far away, and kind of unimportant place on the fringes of the world. But that gut feeling is just wrong. So, okay, if the map we all know is messing with our heads, then how does distance actually work? Well, to get that, we need to stop thinking about a flat piece of paper and start thinking like the people who actually navigate our globe for a living, pilots and ship captains. And it all comes down to this idea of a great circle route. It's a really simple concept, actually. It's just the shortest possible path between any 2 points on a sphere. It's not about what looks like a straight line on a flat map. It's about what's actually the shortest distance in the real three-dimensional world. When you actually plot one of these great circle routes, let's say for a flight from New York to London, on a flat Mercator map, it looks weird. It looks like this long, strange curve that goes way up north. It feels totally counterintuitive, like a massive detour. But the second you wrap that map back into a globe, it all clicks into place. You see that the curve is, in fact, a straight line. It's the most efficient path. And for pilots and captains, this is everything. It saves a ton of time, a ton of fuel, and it lowers risk. So, let's take this new understanding and apply it back to Greenland. Once you start thinking in great circle routes, its position on the map completely changes. It's not some remote island at the top of the world anymore. It's smack dab in the middle of some of the most important air and sea corridors in the entire Northern Hemisphere. And hey, this isn't some new discovery. Militaries have known this for decades. The U.S. set up the Thule Air Base in Greenland way back in 1951 for aerospace defense. The famous DEW line, the Distant Early Warning Radar system, stretched right across the Arctic. And today, that gap between Greenland, Iceland, and the UK is a critical choke point for monitoring submarine activity. And this really gets to the core of it. Greenland's strategic importance isn't some political opinion. It's a permanent, unchangeable fact of aerospace and maritime geometry. This geographic reality is becoming more important now than ever before. And that's because there is a new race for the Arctic, and it is on. As the climate changes, the region is opening up in ways we've never, ever seen before. Just think about the economics for a second. The Northern Sea Route, this new shipping lane that goes across the top of the world, can cut the distance from Asia to Europe by about 30%. For a massive cargo ship, that's an absolutely incredible saving in both time and fuel. And then you've got what's hiding under the water. The U.S. Geological Survey thinks the Arctic holds about 30% of the world's undiscovered natural gas and 13% of its undiscovered oil. The economic stakes here are just immense. So, as you'd expect, this has kicked off a new kind of gold rush. Russia is all in with a huge fleet of icebreakers. China has actually declared itself a near-Arctic state, and Greenland itself is sitting on some of the world's biggest deposits of rare earth elements, the stuff that's critical for all our modern tech. Okay, so let's bring this all back home. This whole story really comes down to one single thing: the map that you carry around inside your head. The way you chart the world fundamentally changes how you see the world. The whole joke about buying Greenland, it only works, it only seems funny, because the Mercator map has taught us to see Greenland as this far-flung, irrelevant chunk of ice. The second you switch charts to one a navigator or a pilot uses, the joke falls flat. The strategic value becomes obvious. I absolutely love this quote from the source material. It just perfectly sums it up. Maps aren't just pictures. They actually shape our intuition. They tell us what's close, what's far away, and ultimately what's important enough to care about. And really, that's the ultimate takeaway here. On a flat, rectangular classroom map, the idea seems absurd. But on a sphere, on the real world, governed by flight paths and shipping lanes and fuel costs, Greenland's strategic importance looks, well, it looks inevitable. And so that kind of leaves us with a final question to chew on. What other obvious truths that we all just take for granted are actually just distortions, created by the very tools we use to see and understand our world?